Go on, Swinny. I was like more just trying to shut up Mike.
Okay, all good. All right. So this week was the release of probably the most obscure game I'm ever going to talk about on this show, outside of maybe some dodgy mobile game I'll randomly play one day. But a game by the name of Light Fairytale, Episode 2 specifically. So what this game is actually, well, by the, what you can tell by the name, it's the second part of a game. The first game came out 2 years ago, and I randomly saw it as a new release on the Xbox Store. I'm like, this looks really cool. I haven't heard of this. It's like, it looks like a PS1 JRPG, like your Final Fantasy VII style, and it was cheap. And so I purchased it, and I was really surprised. I really enjoyed it. A very bite sized game. We're talking like a 3 hour game or so. But I really liked it. So it's obviously 2 years later, we've finally got the second part of it. And the reason why it's taken so long is these games are made by one person. So it's a one person
Wow.
studio called neko.works specifically. I read in there on their page you pronounce the dot. And this is a French developer, and they clearly have a real deep love for RPGs, so much so that the official YouTube channel even has like Final Fantasy VI Let's Plays on it and stuff for
That's
the actual
cool.
studio. And the original series was actually kickstarted. Well, attempted to kickstart. It actually failed, and they developed a game called Super Knight Riders to actually, obviously, to like it seemed like that game was something that could put out with less hassle than a full blown RPG. And that helped fund the development of the episode 1, and now we've finally got episode 2. So I believe it came out in Steam a couple of months ago, but it finally came out on Xbox. I think it's coming out to PS4 later this year, but had a chance to play through it. So just like the first game, pretty short experience, but I knew that going in. We're talking about about 3 to 4 hour game, a little bit more just for clean up some completionist stuff. But it's for anyone that can see the footage, it's very much it's a turn-based RPG in the vein of your PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy games, and it's very much a throwback in many ways. It's got some really, really nice graphics, kind of very much it's chibi style, but then it's just, I don't know, it's just got a really nice look to it. And it's actually got some really nice music as well. So, from a presentation standpoint, the games are really, really strong as well. Episode 1 was set in almost like a Midgar style city that's, very much like Final Fantasy VII. And episode 2 takes place in like icy wastes. So I think from an environmental standpoint, doesn't look as nice, but that's just the story needed to go in that direction.
Mm.
But yeah, from I guess what the game plays like, so the battles are pretty standard JRPG stuff, but it's nice. Sometimes it's a game doesn't want to reinvent the wheel; it just wants to pay homage to games that came before. Does have a neat little orb system, where you're equipping orbs against your different gear for elemental attack or defense. A little bit of strategy there, but it can get a little unbalanced in places. But this is where these games actually are a little unique in the sense that there are limited battles. So it's not like you can fight as many enemies as you want. There's actually zones you go into where you'll encounter the enemies. And once you've encountered, say, 3 or 4 enemies in that zone, it then clears that zone. So there's no way to actually grind to get overpowered in it. But it's also not a game that it's not really designed around that. As I said, it's a short experience. So it's not like you're
Hmm.
building these characters up for an epic journey. You're just kind of playing through and enjoying the story. And the story is nice. It's nothing special, but it's got fun characters and some fun dialogue. It does pick up directly from the first episode, and honestly, because it's been about 2 years, I'd forgotten about the events in the first game, so I kind of wish I would have replayed the first game a bit, because your progress actually carries over your character levels and your equipment and items and everything.
I was
But
about to ask. That's cool.
yeah, it does. But because it's been a while, if you asked me, anything about where I was at the end of the first game, other than I remember your character jumping off a cliff, right? And that's where this game picks up.
Hmm.
So I think if anyone did like the first game and it's been a while, should probably replay it leading into this. I think you'll probably, it'll probably seamlessly transition a lot more. So, yeah, look, overall, I think it's a really, really fun little game. just keep your expectations in check. So it was for launch, it was $12. It's $15 normally, so it's obviously not a super expensive game, but it's also only about a 3 to 4 hour game. So keep that in mind. I think I did enjoy the first episode a little bit more, but this was still fun. And I'm keen to see where the story goes. There was part of me that was worried we'd never get the number two, so I'm just happy that the neko.works was able to get there.
Can
But
I
I
just
guess-
ask, just sorry to interrupt on the number
Yeah.
2 thing. You know how it's called episode 2? Is it like that made me think it's more like the Telltale style episode, but is it like almost a sequel or?
Well, I mean, they're both just separate releases.
Yeah.
So they're not like, it's not DLC for the first game or anything, but it's almost like, technically speaking, they're different games. But if you were to think about that, yeah, it's an episodic game in some ways. But I think that, again, this is a very independent developer. So obviously they're only able to work on a schedule that makes sense for what they can do. But yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to say was, this was a failed Kickstarter project. We don't hear about the failures very often, especially the ones that end up making their way to a full release eventually. So I just wanted to say, get out there and support those developers wherever you can by buying their games, because I think that these are the people that really, really need it. So
No, that's fair
Cool.
enough.
Great.
That looks pretty cool. All right,
That
well,
was a good
let's get
review. Thank
into our final segment for the night.